I love that we're opening a panel on big tech, which means the tech is not working on my computer. It's as if they know. So, you know what, Alli? Could you try to, okay. Just try to get it to go to the next slide. So, good afternoon, y'all. My name is Rania Masri. I am one of the 3 co-directors and the director of organizing and policy, which means there's a lot of organizing and policy to do in this state. I am absolutely thrilled to be opening up a panel on data centers that we are calling Hydra. How many people here are familiar with the Greek mythology Hydra? Okay, so the mythology is that there's this serpent with 9 heads. You chop off one head, another head pops up. And Luma, with her ingenuity, was like, data centers are a Hydra. William, could I trouble you to? Data centers are a Hydra, and what we mean by that is that the myriad of impacts that they have are like a 9-headed serpent. They impact, without exaggeration, every single aspect of our lives. And just like a monster, though, they don't impact us all equally. Just like a monster, they target those that are most marginalized and most vulnerable more than they target the very creature that is riding the back of the monster. So I'm going to stop with the analogy now. Where we are in North Carolina, as we stand, is we currently have 100 data centers currently in North Carolina. We have dozens of other hyperscale data centers that are being planned, being proposed, or for whom land has already been purchased to bring them to North Carolina. There was a fantastic report done by Media Justice that outlines how the South, from Virginia down towards Texas, has become the heart of the expansion of data centers because once again, the South is being looked at by these corporations as another extractive location. So in North Carolina, they are coming. And we need to think about them in 3 aspects. We have the developer that is ecstatic. We have the energy producer, which in North Carolina is, exactly, Duke Energy. So Duke Energy, that is so happy to bring them forward because guess what? According to Duke Energy, in a report recently released by Adam Wagner from the News and Observer, according to Duke Energy, although data centers make up 30% of their current projects, currently, data centers make up 30% of Duke Energy's projects, and yet according to Duke Energy, data centers comprise 86% of Duke Energy's energy needs. 30% to 86%. And again, this is currently not even considering what is going to happen in Richmond County and the other hyperscale data centers that are being planned. So we have the developer that is ecstatic. We have the energy producer, Duke Energy, that is ecstatic. And the third aspect of data centers is the end user. For whom are these data centers being built? For whom? What kind of data is centered there? And who will be using it? And upon whom will it be used against? So these are the questions that we want to be tackling in this panel. We are grounding it first with William Ingram from Richmond County. The bios of our panelists are in your booklet, so I will not be reading them out, but I do want you to spend time learning more about who they are. William is coming to us from Richmond County, from an organization that he and his brother co-founded called the Richmond County Coalition for Justice and Black Empowerment. The name alone says a lot. So William will be talking to us about what Amazon is planning to do in Richmond County. And then we go to Leslie St. Dre from Durham. Give Leslie a hand. Leslie is the executive director, currently the founder and creator of an organization that I call CLAP, that stands for Community, Land, and Power. Leslie will be talking to us about, well, what happens to the land? Is there a relationship between data centers and gentrification? Is there a relationship between data centers and property? And how can we tackle it locally with zoning? What can we do? And then we go to Alli, who's coming to us all the way from the Northeast, all the way from New York City. And Alli continues to tell me that they don't like Southern niceness, they prefer New York honesty. So let us be sure to share with Alli, like, Southern honesty as well. Yeah. So Alli is representing an organization called AI Now. And Alli will be questioning, well, what is artificial intelligence? What does it mean? What do we do there? Who uses it? And then we go all the way to Linda Saleh, who is up there, who we will then be opening up the Zoom. Linda could not make it here. Linda's juggling so much, but we are deeply appreciative that Linda is able to be with us virtually, because in that way, she offers us the opportunity to say, the ability to introduce Linda via Zoom is not what the hyperscale data centers are going to be offering us. Let me make that clear. These hyperscale data centers are not here to provide us with energy so we can be talking to our comrades up in the Northeast or wherever they are. That is not what they are designed to do. Linda will be questioning, well, hold on, where do Big Green stand? Where does philanthropy stand? How many of you have gotten an email saying, use AI in your work? Okay, so let's take down that carpet and understand that further. So we are going to be examining all these questions with our panelists. I encourage you all in your booklet, oh, wonderful, thank you. In your booklet, you will see the hidden cost of data centers on page 22. Don't read it now, but just know that you've got that, okay? So with that, I'm gonna hand the floor over to Richard. Why am I saying Richard? Why is Richard on my mind? William, thank you. Oh.
Hello, everyone. I'm Will Ingram. Like Rania said, I'm from Richmond County Coalition for Justice and Black Empowerment. Also a member of Black Workers for Justice. I kind of got prepared a little bit. I wanted to prepare a slide for you guys so I could kind of go through a little history of Richmond County and a little history of the grassroots organization that me and my brother created down in Richmond County to kind of combat some of these environmental hazards and contaminations that we've been dealing with. Since moving back, I'll just start since she's still working on it, but since moving back to Richmond County, I was in the military for a long time and I retired out, came back home and decided that we were going to farm with my dad. My dad had some questions about some land. We had some land lost in Richmond County, and me and my brother were able to go to court and fight and get that land back for our family, right? So that's kind of where we started at, and we didn't know that we were going to start something that we're going to have to finish now, right? There's a lot of people just aren't happy when military veterans, believe it or not, a lot of us always get rewarded by saying thank you for your service. But when we come back here as black soldiers, we always realize that when we come home, it's a different story for us. It's always been like that. So coming back home to our community and seeing the devastation that's been happening for 20 years since I graduated high school, coming back and realizing that a lot of it, coming back and just realizing that a lot of things had changed. And as much as things had changed, things had stayed the same for some people, right? And so just seeing the devastation of our community was something that pushed us to create the coalition. So I'll just start with the vision statement. Our vision is to build a future where every community, regardless of race, economic status, thrives in safety. I can't I wear glasses. Dignity and access for vital resources. At Richmond County Coalition for Just and Black Empowerment, we grow to remain steadfast in our commitment to not only address the injustices of the past, but also to create a lasting transformative change that empowers the people to organize, advocate, and shape a just society for generations to come. Our mission statement, Richmond County Coalition for Justice and Black Empowerment, is dedicated to addressing systematic injustices and environmental racism fueled by industrial practices in our community. We advocate for clean water, the rights for black workers, all workers, and an end to the disproportionate impact faced by black communities in Richmond County and beyond. Therefore, through grassroots organizing and advocacy community empowerment, we aim to amplify the voices of the people in our community, challenge oppressive systems, and build a healthier, more equitable future for all. You can go to the next slide. So these next slides here, as you can see, these are some of the slides that are that directly correlate and affect our communities. The first slide is Cascades. It's a plant that sits right on the major creek that feeds most of our community's drinking water, called Hitchcock Creek. So I'll keep talking as they're working on that, but you can see Hitchcock Creek, and then you can see Ledbetter down at the bottom if you kind of see. That is actually an old mill that they refurbished into a condo. So the people that live there, most of the people from the community couldn't afford to move there anyway, but they refurbished that, and most of the contaminants that you can see on the next slide, go to the next slide. On this next slide here, this is the Purdue chicken plant, and this is the drain located right across the street from the chicken plant, and it feeds to the previous slide. It feeds into the Henson Lake. Henson Lake was created back in the 40s by black soldiers that came back home from the war, and they went there and created that for the community there. But Purdue plant drains and storm drains. So this runs directly into the community. It's a community that's located right next to the Purdue Center, and it runs in straight into their drinking water. So go to the next slide, Rania. And so these are some of the notices that I just posted of what we get weekly or monthly, telling them that we need to do things with our water, such as flush the system. They tell us when your water turns brown or if there's any sludge in it, to just run your water and let it run. Well, the biggest issue that we have is that a lot of people in our community are already paying for their utilities. They pay for their water, and they can't drink it. So the biggest problem is everybody has bottled water. So we keep going to the next slide. And as you see, these next slides up here also say the same thing. It tries to explain to customers about the distribution of the water and the reasons that you need to turn it on temporarily and turn it off. Next slide, Rania. And then this is the latest notice that we just got about two customers, where they require us to actually go out and check our lines. And if you can imagine how many elderly people are in our communities, they can't go out and make this happen, right? So I just got a letter and sent it back in to the county about 3 of our properties, the same exact thing, is they want to know what type of lead or what type of plumbing and piping we're utilizing so that they can see what the next steps is, what they need to do. So next slide, Rania. And then this is a picture of the water. I got this picture. This is actually a video that one of our residents sent me, and she was crying on the phone and on this video explaining to me why she has to pay for this water, and then this is what they have to bathe in. This is what they have to wash their clothes in, and they can't even drink it, and it's only her husband, and her child that lives in the home, and their utilities are double the cost. And then here's what we're working on with our community: well water and residential testing. So this is what our organization advocates for, is well water testing and testing our community. That's the only way we can collect the data and collect the mapping so that we'll know the locations of each one of these contaminants. So that's what we're working on. Then the next slide. And so this is a picture of Miss Valerie Johnson over at the Rock Quarry. We do environmental tours down in Richmond County. It's something that we just started. We want to drive people around. If you come down and you come to one of our forums or one of our functions, we love to drive you guys around so you can actually see what we're dealing with. The rock quarry is one of the biggest issues because it's so deep now that there's a community that is right on the outskirts of this rock quarry. And they are now encroaching on their continued property. Another significance, you can go to the next slide, Rania. This is another picture of the rock quarry. The significance of this picture is if you look at the center of that rock quarry, that is where my great-great-grandmother was buried at, right? It was one of the oldest settlements here in Richmond County. It was called the Zion Community, right? There was a 40-foot rock that ejected out of the rock quarry here, and there was a school, a church, and a burial site. They removed as many graves as they could just to say we moved them, right, before the rock quarry company Vulcan came in and started digging. So that's the significance of that. And then this is actually where Blewett Falls sit in the PD River. We have the PD PD Electric Company, and Duke Energy sits right on this natural dam in Blewett Falls. So the water that they're charging us with or using for electricity is free. It's free to them. So to charge us for it is another subject and another issue. And then this is the announcement that was just made back in May for the $10 billion announcement in Richmond County for Amazon. They offered local organizations $150,000 seed money at $10,000 a piece per organization to submit their plans for things that they advocate for in the community. They offered them $10,000 to support their plans. And like I mentioned to Ms. Jasmine Washington earlier, sometimes those things are just for corporations like Alco to get into the communities, figure out what the issues are, and then do nothing about it. So that's why we have to be weary of where we take money from and who we take it from. And then this is the result that we want, is the same result that Black Workers for Justice got for Emmett Rowe. Anybody that's contaminating our land, our air, and our water, they need to be in the same situation as him, locked up behind bars. So that's what we need to fight for. And then here's one of the last slides, and this is a little picture of one of those families that lived near that rock quarry. This is my great-great-grandfather. He was born in 1845, and this is his wife. She was born in 1854, and this is their children, right? They were born to free people. They were indigenous, right? They are the PD people, right? The PD cultural people. This is where they come from, is where Mr. Leake's family comes from, just like mine. We're connected, and she is a Leake as well, just like him, right? We can go to, and then as we stand here on Franklinton, right? As we stand here, this is also one of the schools in Richmond County, one of the first schools that was a free school for the residents that was created by our families, right? We did have societies and places that were free, believe it or not, where we did control our own destinations and our own narratives. So I appreciate you guys. That was the last slide, and here's our event that we got coming up October the 30th. It's a Zoom forum. If you would like to be invited to the forum, we'd love to have you. So you can look at this forum. We also have our email or our scan thing there. We also have some handouts, and hopefully we'll see you on the Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, William. So we can just imagine a $10 billion data center coming into Richmond County in a community that has to buy bottled water for their water consumption. And what we already know from data centers, we already know that while only half of all data center operators track their water use, so get this, half of all data center operators in this country do not track their water use. The half that do track their water use, we know that of those half, many use more water a day than 49,000 Americans use. So many of these data centers, and likely the Amazon data center that is coming to Richmond County, will use several million gallons of water every single day. So not only do these data centers steal water from the community and deprive them of the water, these data centers are also guaranteed, based on Duke Energy's reports, to bring with them rolling blackouts and rolling brownouts. Brownouts are when you're limited in terms of what kind of energy consumption you can have during the day. Third, we know based on the North Carolina General Assembly's resolutions that the consumers throughout the state will be the ones paying for this increased energy usage and not the end user themselves. So it's not Amazon that's footing the bill, it's folks that are footing the bill. So that is just regarding to water and energy rates. We also know that data centers produce noise, a lot of noise. The noise is so loud that it is much higher than the World Health Organization's record, the World Health Organization's recommendation for noise pollution. The noise for communities that are surrounding these data centers can most definitely trigger stress, anxiety, and heart risks. And one individual was quoted as saying, "It sounds like somebody's constantly crying." And we haven't even talked about the major health risk, which is air quality. Okay, I don't know what just happened here. Okay. The major health risk, which is air quality, because these data centers need to run 24 hours a day. Blackouts don't apply to them. So if they drain the energy source, they're going to be using a diesel generator. So not only are these data centers being used through fossil fuel and likely through nuclear power and natural gas, but they will also be dependent on diesel generators. So if we look at air quality, we know that they will result in increased public health risks, already estimated at least 20,000 asthma symptoms a year, and already the cost of these data centers on community health is estimated to be $5 billion a year. So we're talking about air quality, water quality, noise pollution, all while the people themselves are footing the bill. So given all that, this mega hyperscale is coming to Richmond County. So then our question to Leslie is, Leslie's work connects big tech expansion to housing displacement. So Leslie, could you tell us, what strategies then can communities use to resist both the land grabs and the erosion of affordable housing before AI, data centers, and big tech take further hold of our lives and communities?
I'm just going to be here. Thanks. Thank you for putting this all together, Rania. These are really crucial conversations. The first communities always targeted for land theft and expulsion are always Black and Indigenous communities, no matter what. So what we're seeing now with tech, AI, data centers is the same capitalism, colonialism, apartheid, that's happened, and now genocide in Palestine. It's all connected. That has been happening from the birth of, from the takeover of Turtle Island. So this question that Rania has asked me is something I've been struggling with and organizing around for the past 14 years. Much of that being within the housing movement of San Francisco in the last 5 years here in Durham. Tech-fueled inequality, gentrification, and displacement have been playing out in San Francisco since the mid-90s, given Silicon Valley's proximity to and consumption of the city and its cultures. Their booms are appropriately compared to California's gold rush, marking the rapid economic and societal changes stemming from the rush to make instant wealth for the few. The entire economy and development of that area shifts and caters to this one industry in a rush to capture some of the industry's wealth. Developers build only for the rich, and landlords hike rents to prices that only the highest earners can afford. This leads to an increased economic strain, evictions, and displacement for everyone else. No income, low income, middle income, everyone is strained. However, these busts for no, low, and even middle income residents have spurred booms of resistance alongside them. What we've been fighting there for decades is emerging in cities across the country, as we're seeing with this latest presentation. We can learn from fights against colonialism, capitalism, and displacement and apply them to today's fights against techno-capitalism, which is leading to techno-fascism. As always, we must uplift solutions from poor and landless people's movements across the globe. So AI, artificial intelligence, is not intelligent. It's tech algorithms that scrape all of our data and knowledge. It recognizes the patterns of what we're putting on the internet and what we're doing in our daily lives, since it surveils all of us in every move now. It makes predictions based on what it's scraping and collecting without our consent. Those controlling these algorithms are driven by profit. All of this simply re-entrenches existing biases. So, AI now, which we will hear about more in a second, has given us really important framing. AI and big tech is a fight about power, not progress. Land is at the center of all struggles. It represents power, identity, belonging, and life itself. Housing is the determinant of all of our health. So, we can use the threat of big tech and AI to everyone, because it is a threat to everyone, as an opportunity to unite our struggles and build shared strategies across regions and globally. What we need to do is ask people what they want. What are their visions? We have to involve people in civic life, in a civic life that they've been excluded from. So, I want to ask you, who in here asked for AI? Who in this room consented to it disrupting our lives, our jobs, our families, our free time? This is a very important point. This is a very important point. Before, we at least had to agree to terms and conditions. Now, they don't even ask. They're entitled to everything. So, who in this room wants their lives determined by big tech oligarchs? Who in this room thinks capitalism will solve all the problem it creates and relies on? So, deregulating tech, deregulating housing has worked as well as deregulating healthcare, or food prices, or environment, with tech amplifying all of the inequalities. So, residents have to pay for deregulated housing, zoning, energy, water, and all of the impacts on top of subsidizing the private infrastructure. Housing is the #1 household expense. Increasing rent, mortgages, water, energy, on top of AI and tech links to increasing rents, discrimination, price gouging, and now they want to force us to pay for future private energy use. This is a new bill. Maybe you know the name of it. New bill in North Carolina. We have to pay for future energy use, future facilities. Right now, they passed a bill. It was vetoed by Governor Stein, SB 2, I can't remember the name of it. But we are now forced to pay for future infrastructure, future facilities for energy that we don't use. We will never use. Tech will use it all. We have to pay for it. This is all on top of everything being increased, right? 61% of people in this country don't even have a minimal quality of life, right? This is the majority. This is not made for us. So, we can stop the tech takeover and the new digital redlining. We need to prioritize residents, not developers and big corporations. Deregulation is against democracy. We deserve a say in our lives, our homes, our futures. We demand housing first, communities first, residents first, our collective futures first. Demand everything. This is an opportunity to make people's platforms not just ask for, reforms or little things. No, we have to set the table, flip theirs. They've taken our table. They've taken the whole world. We have to make a table that we hold our representatives accountable to. We have to create mutual aid networks that take care of us, because this is going to take a while, y'all. This is a huge fight. So we can look to take back our collective power. We can look like housing movements look to concepts like right to the city. This is by French sociologist Henry Lefebvre in 1968, saying urban dwellers, not just the wealthy or developers, should have control on how their cities are shaped. The right to create them as spaces of creativity and community and social justice. Pardon me. So we need intersectional organizing, political education, coalition building, leadership development, policy interventions that catalyze sustainable community-led stabilization, reclamation, and development without displacement, prioritizing leadership of historically marginalized residents. The values guiding our work should be rooted in principles of interdependence, solidarity economies, and land back to right relations. AI, tech takeover, homelessness, displacement, these are all policy choices. The same people, the tech billionaires buying up the presidency, are buying up local seats of power. And like Prince William's Virginia, we can oust them. We can build a whole new table, like I've said, with collective care and the ability to thrive at the center. So, the majority of Americans already understand corporate billionaire-backed AI is having a negative impact on society, and they want control over it. This is the majority. The majority worries that government regulation will be too lax. 3/4 of US policymakers believe it should be regulated. Despite this overwhelming consensus, the billionaire-backed tech lobby are buying politicians to control our lives, surveil every move, and determine our futures. We deserve to shape our futures and refuse to pay for representatives who refuse to listen to the majority in this state. So, our messaging: represent us, not tech billionaires, no compromise in our lives, more safety from AI harms. Our futures are not for sale.
So I have a request for y'all. How many people here are on the Franklin Center Wi-Fi? Please raise your hand. Okay, I need everybody to get off the Wi-Fi, except me and Danny. Everybody else on the Wi-Fi at Franklin Center, please get out. Just pretend you're on an airplane. Though I keep mine on the plane, but Okay, and hopefully that'll help get Linda back to join us. Linda's here. Okay, okay, great. So, now that we've talked about data centers, how they harm our land, how they harm our water, our air, how they harm our communities, and how they harm the basically where we live in so many different ways in terms of housing displacement, let's investigate what AI actually is. So, Alli, from your work on AI and policing, and just to make sure, how many people here want to defund the cops? Okay. From your work on AI and policing, how do you see corporate power and surveillance technologies tied to the physical expansion of data centers? And I'm going to get up and give Alli the hot seat.
Is this on? Okay. Hey, everyone. Oh, right, I'm not in New York. People reply. I love it. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Alli. I'm an organizer, a movement researcher, a policy nerd, sometimes focused on AI, surveillance, technologies, corporate power. And before I start, I just want to say I don't come to this as a technologist. I don't come to this as a lawyer. I don't come to this as a professor, although I have respect for all three of those categories. I come to this as a person who had to confront technology because it was being used to harm people I love and the communities that I'm accountable to. And I say that because everyone in this room, no matter what we are told, is an expert on technology, on AI, because we know what we need. And the companies do not get to decide for us. And that's also my caveat to say, if you ask me a super technical question, I do not have to answer if I don't want to. So I'm gonna go through today what these companies are telling us that the data center build-out is for, what this data center build-out looks like, and then break down AI and corporate power and how these things are intimately entwined. And just for where I'm coming from, I work with the AI Now Institute in New York City. We are a policy research independent organization focused on pushing back against the current trajectory of AI, pushing it away from unbridled surveillance, the concentration of power in the tech industry, and enabling all of these harms. And we try to match we try to connect what's going on in industry and policy and translate that into actionable interventions for organizers and communities. So just to get a little read of the room, who has heard from somebody, media, anyone, that data centers will create jobs? Who's heard this? Raise your hand. Yeah. Who has heard that data centers are great economic development investment? Yeah, I've heard this a lot. How about that data centers are so that we can watch Netflix or send emails? Okay, I've been told it's for the 1,000 pictures of my niece that I have on my phone, right, on a daily basis. Any other things you've heard that data centers will do? Just shout it out. Louder. Make work easier. I wish, yes. What else? Increase the tax base. Yeah, tied to economic development. Anything else? Improve research. Yeah. One more. Improve medical, yeah. So there's a lot of promises being made, and I just want to debunk a few that I hear and communities that I work with hear the most often, and say what's actually going on. So the first is jobs. Data centers, despite what we're told and these promises from big tech companies, create very few permanent jobs. Most can operate on average with as few as 50 people. And that includes both kind of high-paying technician jobs and majority of lower-paying janitorial and administrative staff and security guards. Even these limited jobs rarely go to residents, and companies almost never commit to employing people from the community. And we hear a lot of higher numbers, right? No one is saying we're only gonna make 50 jobs, but these higher numbers almost always tend to be temporary construction jobs, again, with no commitments to local hiring. And in fact, a lot of these high-paying construction roles, like electricians, are often filled with workers who travel in from out of state, mostly Northern Virginia. So to go back to our friends in Richmond County, Amazon's Blue Marlin project, Amazon is touting that it will create hundreds and hundreds of jobs, but if you read the subsidy agreement, they are only committing to hire 50 people by the end of 2030. By the end of 2030, I could move faster than that, right? And I'm not a multinational corporation. So this is the thing, thankfully. So this is the massive gap between what's promised and what's guaranteed. The second myth is economic development. Data center companies say that they're going to generate billions in investment, but what does this mean? These billions of dollars are not going to our city budgets, they're not for our schools, they're not for our public infrastructure, they don't even represent taxable value. What they mean is private investment for private profit. And simultaneously, data centers require so much electricity, like Rania just walked us through, and these companies have the power to negotiate these special sweetheart deals behind the scenes with utilities, that they lock out more sustainable industries from getting onto the grid. So they don't just take, they prevent other industries that are environmentally friendly and actually hire people from coming in. Again, what's happening in North Carolina, Google in Caldwell County received $73 million in tax breaks, but over 12 years paid just $5 million in taxes back to the local community. So again, when data center companies are promising that they will increase tax revenues, they're not including the millions, hundreds of millions in tax breaks that they are receiving. And the last myth that I want to break down is that data centers are for our digital lives. Maybe that was true 10 years ago, or maybe part of it was true 10 years ago. Data centers have existed for decades, but not at the scale that we're seeing. The number of data centers in the US doubled between 2021 and earlier this year alone. There are almost, I think at the time, there were about 5,500 data centers in the country. And the majority of the ones that are being built out are hyperscale facilities, which is a fancy way of saying really freaking big. Okay, and much, much bigger than we need for our actual digital lives and operations. The reality is that the vast amount of capacity build out is not for us, it's for enterprise clients, which means big tech speculative AI, fossil fuel companies, and the military industrial complex, the defense industry. So what does this look like? I want to walk through. No. Bad. Okay. I've had the privilege of learning from some incredible organizers in Northern Virginia and Memphis, and I just want to show you what the future looks like, because that's what's coming here unless we do something to stop it. So this is Northern Virginia. This is data center build out right by children's sports fields and playgrounds. This is Tippett's Hill, a historically black cemetery, which is now surrounded by data centers on all sides. This is the loneliest metro station in the world. It is one of the newest metro stations in the DC area, and there is no walkable infrastructure around it, only data centers. There was no one there when I was there. And this is a video that I took on a tour of data center Alli. This is about 30 seconds of 2 hours, just data centers going by. This is in Loudoun County in Virginia. You get the idea. And this is Memphis, Tennessee. This is Musk's XAI facility right by Boxtown, which is a historically black community already suffering from some of the highest rates of asthma and cancer in the country. This is the polluting power infrastructure, trucks carrying coal ash through Boxtown, and the actual facility, which they wouldn't let Rania and a whole busload of I into, with these gas turbines that are causing so much air pollution, and private security, which followed us everywhere we went. So that's what this looks like. That's what's coming for us. So what is this for? Let's just break down really quickly what AI actually is, right? Because the tech companies talk about it in such a way that it's this singular technology, it can solve every problem that we face, right? They want us to believe their products can solve every single problem in our daily lives and in our society. But when we're talking about AI, what we're actually talking about is a wide-ranging suite of technologies, many of which long precede the current boom moment that we're in. AI largely consists of algorithms that take and process massive amounts of data, our information, to generate outputs. These outputs can be predictions, what word should come next in a sentence, scores, our credit scores, risk assessment scores when we want to rent an apartment or if we are incarcerated, ranking of content. We also hear a lot about generative AI, which again relies on our data, massive amounts of our information, to generate new content. But again, it's not new, it is filling in patterns that we have created. And it's also important to remember that AI is a supply chain with immense material impacts. So the second aspect of AI is compute. That's a fancy way of saying hardware, software, chips, data centers, software like large language models, energy infrastructure. And the third part of AI that we don't ever talk about is the labor. AI relies on immense amounts of invisibilized human labor, often workers hired under increasingly precarious conditions to train AI models, and again, the labor that we use generating our data. There is simply no AI without big tech. The wealthiest companies in the world have rigged the game in their favor, and if and when the AI bubble fails, it will be the people in this room and the communities that you're a part of and that we're a part of that pay the price, not the corporations. And I know I'm at time. I just want to, can I add one final point to close us up? I'm happy to talk about this more in questions. But briefly, just how they operate, right? Their, kind of their business model for rigging the game. AI firms used to be nonprofit companies, research institutions that were invested in launching kind of useful products. Now they're aiming to reshape the very foundations of our society. AI companies have lobbied to their heart's content to rewrite the laws in their favor and are pushing for deregulation across the board, and asking for our taxpayer money to do so. They're pushing to integrate AI across the federal government, even when it's not fit for purpose, right, to make critical decisions about our lives, and creating a monopoly so that they are gatekeepers to all inputs in the supply chain. So when you hear about smaller companies, they're still using the same foundation models, they're still using the same tech and the same infrastructure at the core. And it's the communities that are left, right, with, as we know, higher energy costs, a strained grid, and the negative consequences of these backdoor deals. I have a lot more to say, but I think I will pause there. That AI is being used on us largely and not by us, and being used to concentrate the power of industry, landlords, the police, bosses, insurance companies, and this is what the data center build-out is truly for, and this is why we need to fight back holistically and across sectors.
Thank you, Alli. We say it with New York honesty. We love you. Imagine all of this not only being used for surveillance, but being used to take away jobs. The #1 community in the United States that will face a loss of employment because of AI is the African American community. So in addition to everything else. With that, Danny, can you make sure Linda joins us? I don't see her. There we go. Okay, and we need to make Linda bigger. Okay. So Linda Saleh from New York is then looking at all of this that we have examined. And Linda comes to us from a different kind of organizing. Linda used to organize on reproductive rights. And so how and why, Linda, are Big Greens and philanthropy supporting AI and data centers? How and why are Big Greens and philanthropy supporting AI and data centers? And coming from gender and reproductive justice organizing, what lessons can help us build durable cross-sector alliances against data center expansion, especially when philanthropy often divides rather than strengthens our movements? Welcome, Linda, and our apologies for all the tech issues. No pun included. No, we cannot hear you. Am I muted? No. Okay. Linda, can you try again, please? Okay. AV, Dwayne, can you help us? Linda, could you try again, please? Okay. So while we're trying to get Linda organized and get Linda settled, the volunteers have distributed papers to all of you, correct? Okay. You will see among those sheets several things. Each of you get to keep a map of data centers that we are working on improving and enlarging so we can understand the current data centers, the planned data centers, and how much energy they're taking, and we can organize it community by community. You will also find on your table a larger map outlining the current data centers. So you can look at both maps together. You also have a sheet from Richmond County Coalition if you want to be supporting Richmond County Coalition. And then the last sheet that you have is a double-sided document. One side in which I would encourage you to go through those questions, but not now, right when we get Linda. I'm just familiarizing you with the documents. The second sheet you can start filling out if you want, which are questions that we would love you to be telling us. Multiple choice, fill them out, and then you're going to be giving them all back to me. We are building, NCEJN is building a North Carolina Data Center Network Coordination. I don't know what is it with leftist and long names, so my apologies, but it's the North Carolina Data Center Network Coordination Group, in which we are going to be doing research together, organizing communities together, and hopefully, and this is the silver lining that I see here, because data center harms us all, it could bring us all together. So everybody that's working for the rights of the incarcerated, everyone that's working against policing and against the military-industrial complex, anyone that's working on housing rights, anyone that's opposed to surveillance and the immense invasions of privacy, and anyone who likes to drink clean water, anyone who likes to breathe fresh air, and anyone that is in support of affordable housing. And one more thing, anyone who does not like the idea of Elon Musk and Zuckerberg determining the economic and political and social fabric of this country, we can all stand together and build a tornado of collective power to defeat fascism and techno-feudalism. That's the silver lining. They're bringing us together, and by so doing, we're going to build the power to defeat them. Are you with me on that? Okay, still working on the audio. While we still work on the audio, because time is so precious and because time is finite, anybody have any really quick questions to any of our panelists? I'm sorry? Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, not sure. Yes. Okay, so we see a question from Ashley, and then a question in the back, and then Larry. Okay, so 3 people. Yes. We'll take all 3 questions together.
Question about Prince William, Virginia. You mentioned that Prince William, Virginia fought data centers, and I was curious to know more about that.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. You mentioned Prince William, Virginia being like a model or an example around like what other people could follow, and I was curious to know what the story is with Prince William, Virginia.
Sorry, I was confused on the process. Yes, so it basically the people came together and flipped the commissioners. I don't know it in full detail, but they voted out the people that approved the data center, brought in commissioners who were against it. Supposedly, we never know what electeds are going to do, right? Got to keep their feet to the fire. And so now they're back in the process of banning it, right? I don't know if it's been banned. Do you know, Rania?
Yeah. So Northern Virginia has kind of historically in the U.S. been the epicenter of the data center build-out because of its proximity to D.C., the military, the government, center of power. Some of the organizers in Virginia are part of a national coalition that we have, and they have made it essentially an election issue. And I get some of the moratoriums confused, but there have been a number of protective policies passed, not only in Prince William, but across the country, either reforming zoning laws to restrict data center development, pass moratoriums, or bans. Atlanta, Georgia has a ban on data center construction near the Beltline, which is maybe not the best example because that's a gentrification engine, but it is an example of where a mix of electeds across political lines are moving. And I would say also that a number of us are working on policy interventions that can help to slow or stop data center development, and I'm happy to connect about that.
So data centers have thrown in $1 trillion to build data centers. Already, according to data centers, we, the people, have stopped $64 billion worth of data centers. $64 billion. Question in the back? Oh, they didn't give you a microphone?
Briefly, could you describe how AI is being utilized by the military and the police domestically in foreign affairs?
Hold on to that question. We're going to add another question to that. Larry in the back.
Quick question for William. William, how supportive has the media been for you in your fight in Richmond County? We've got some pretty good investigative reporters, but I have to apologize. I really have not understood that your situation is as bad as it is. So if they haven't supported you, I think we need to get them to support you.
Lisa Sorg and Will Atwater, are you in the house? Okay.
I don't think I heard the end of it. I heard, how is AI being used by the military and police? Was that the question? And ICE?
Domestically and abroad.
Domestically and abroad. Great question, and I will try to do the 1 minute instead of 3-day version of that answer. Okay, where to start? Since after 9/11, tech companies made a very intentional pivot, actually before and after 9/11, towards the homeland security industry, the defense industry, and policing to fill the dot-com bubble burst in their business models. So since then, we've seen extreme lobbying by tech companies towards the federal government and increasing local, state, and federal police for use of their products. And the two now very much work hand in hand. AI is increasingly a central part of that. There's a number of ways that AI is deployed by police and supercharging police. A lot of it is embedded in surveillance technologies, things like license plate readers, which take a picture of license plates of every car as they go by. Data brokers are third-party vendors, private companies that build their business on amassing mass amounts of our data, sometimes from 10,000 sources, public and private information, social media, scraping, information about our purchases, our public records at City Hall, linking it all together, making profiles of us, analyzing us, tagging us as potential gang members, criminals, undocumented people, and selling licenses to these software products to police agencies. And there's something called predictive policing, which is using this system of risk scoring, essentially, to decide where the police should focus their energies. Facial recognition tech, et cetera. There's a number of surveillance technologies, and it's really about making the data economy work to consolidate power and information about people and tell stories about us, particularly those who the police and the government decide are threats. So what AI does at its core is supercharge the underlying agenda that already exists in policing across the country. Woo!
Okay, I'll answer that question real quick, Larry. One little caveat on the surveillance. One thing, as far as military surveillance, I'll add one thing. Having these data centers in the Oh, that was her. Well, I just real quick. So those data centers, the locations that they're being located in Black communities, we have to investigate why are they putting them in the Black communities? Who are they doing surveillance on in the communities? What are they looking for? Right. Those are the questions as a military person that I think of when we're placing these strategically in these locations. What are they looking for, and who are they watching? It's the same story as we heard way before during the civil rights movement when the FBI was put on certain individuals to be looked after. So we have to make sure that we're aware and of the particular reasons of why these things are happening to certain communities. It's not just random. This is on purpose and intentional. As far as the question Larry asked about public broadcasting, we haven't had much footage on Amazon coming to Richmond County. There's not much documentation or anything, anybody really putting any visibility on it except our organization, because we were the first ones to become aware of it. So since we have a couple of stories that have been written about the data center and the effects that it's going to have on our community, but not much investigation has been going into it. So we're up for any advice or any support we can get.
Okay, we are doing this old school, because old school is better. So Linda, you are with us on the phone. Can you hear us? Yes. Great. Okay, and we can hear you, right? Okay. So Linda, the airwaves are all yours. Okay, so there's no video, right? That is correct. We just hear your voice coming from the sky.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to thank everybody in the room for bearing with that because it's going to feel longer, but I'm going to try to keep it tight. And for the technology problems and so much more, I wish I was there. And I'm sad I'm just doing this over the phone. But in response to the question that Rania has posed, there's a lot that could be said. I'm going to really focus on three main points. And I preface this by saying that I'm with Building Equity and Alignment for Environmental Justice, and we work at the intersections, at the sort of across, at the sectors, this space where big greens, EJ organizing sector, and philanthropy meet. So that's the sort of the space I'm coming from. And so I do want to focus on three main points about how we're seeing funders and Greens engage in this moment. I think the first thing that's really important to understand is that there's a huge gulf between how frontline communities are thinking of AI and how funders and big Greens are engaging with AI. So for frontline groups, and all the stats that have been given by Alli, by William, for frontline groups, the experience of AI expansion is really urgent. It's really visceral. It's happening right now. In your geographic space, down the street, right? What we're seeing from funders is that the expansion of AI infrastructure, so data centers, it is much more abstract. It is much more cerebral and intellectual, right? And the focus is much more on what is AI, how does this fit into my world? And so it's a natural, I think, offshoot of something only affecting you in a certain type of way. So that's the first point about the gulf between frontline communities and big Greens and funders. And next, we're going to go into a little bit about how philanthropy is thinking about this and how Greens are. So for philanthropy, one, we know that tech billionaires are flooding climate work. With money, Bezos, Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, et cetera, they're pouring resources into tech-driven solutions for climate crisis, and these, by and large, bypass grassroots leadership in frontline communities. And what we're also seeing right now is that the same companies that are driving data center expansion are starting to resource, I'll say minimally, relatively speaking. They're starting to resource nonprofits. So OpenAI, this $50 million fund for nonprofits called the People First AI Fund. Though the whole point of it is to sort of further AI solutions. It's for no other purpose. If we then look at institutional funders, which is probably where many of us are sort of interacting with philanthropy. They're much more focused on efficiency, productivity, strategy, and to a minor extent on grand team learning. The bottom line, though, for philanthropy is they're moving, institutional funders, is that they're moving slowly, right? Even though we're seeing some very, very recent signs of progress on this front, they are still moving really slowly. If we move, I'll move to big greens now. Big greens are engaging with AI from a whole bunch of different levels, and I have no doubt that many folks in this room at this summit have engaged with sort of state chapters of various big greens, whether Sierra Club or NRDC, etc. They are participating in really different ways. So some are using AI tools, others are challenging AI sort of infrastructural rollouts. Others are solely focused on energy demands. It really runs the gamut. What we are seeing is that big greens are also participating in government and other sort of stakeholder working groups that is now shaping how AI infrastructure is being powered and built. And the example that immediately comes to mind is the Department of Energy convening that happened last year, where the one and only sort of environmental, and I'm using inverted comments here, the one and only environmental movement representative as part of this working group was one of the biggest big greens, right? And this is problematic on a number of levels, not least of which because of the sort of the problematic history of how big greens have engaged with frontline priorities. But also because we know that there's sometimes a disconnect between how state actors show up and chapters show up versus how national shows up. And in these government convenes, basically national, that's showing up. Green are also focused on ethics frameworks, developing ethic framework in terms of like, how do we utilize data and do data research in the age of AI. But what we're seeing is that these are not connected to broader sort of justice or movement goals. And I raised the fact around big greens because they are some of the most resourced actors, organizations in our space. I think the Nature Conservancy has an endowment in the billions, right? So they are the ones that are able to shape the narrative on that. My final point on what I think is really important, and this is arguably the most important, and that it's going to speak to philanthropy, but it also applies to big greens, is I'm going to talk about risk. So the consideration of what constitutes risk among philanthropy is narrow. When it comes to AI, funders often think that we are making technology decisions. There was a recent report by one of these philanthropy serving organizations called Center for Effective Philanthropy. They very recently surveyed 200 foundations, and the results say a lot, right? Foundations' top concern around AI is data security, data leakage, and privacy. This for us shows that philanthropy thinks that we're talking and we're making technology decisions. If we go back to the sort of the central thesis that we are here to build political alignment across these sectors in order to have a stronger overall environmental movement, we have to be understanding, we have to be really clear that we are not making technology decisions, that we are making political decisions. Technology decisions are the ones that happen way downstream. Before we make technology decisions, there have already been a series of political decisions that have been made, right? So when we understand AI in this way, we understand that the risks of AI to people and planet are far greater than if we were coming to this thinking that we were making technology decisions, right? Because what's lost in technology that's not lost when we're thinking about this as a political question and these are political decisions, is the power analysis, right? And so the framing is really, it's in this place that we start talking about values, we start talking about the world that we want to see, and where we are able to actually start from a place where we are talking about the reality of the fight that frontline communities are facing, right? And so I think building a cross-sector alliance for justice requires us to really reduce the disparity in terms of how people think about risk, which means making sure we realize that we are asking political questions and not technology questions. I think in doing that, we'll be much more clear-eyed about this fight. And I'm speaking about, philanthropy and big brains. And just, I think I'm probably close to time, but the last point I'll say is, and this is something that many people in this room already know, but I think it bears repeating. And this is something that I learned from, my work in gender justice organizing and reproductive justice organizing, but also from new folks in big tech, in tech justice, is that big tech is not siloed. It is shaping climate, ag, health, democracy, everything all at the same time. We need to be working at the intersections here, even more than we already are, right? So the best way that we can build power is by connecting across movements, and to take on big tech's sort of expansion, we need alliances that are, I think we do well if we are bridging EJ fight with what tech justice is taking on, with what reproductive justice folks are taking on, with what indigenous sovereignty folks are taking on. And the very final point I'll make is for philanthropy, actually. Big tech is coordinating its power across sectors. So the call to philanthropy is not just about supporting folks to do AI literacy. It's much deeper than that, the responsibility with philanthropy. It's that if our fight and our resistance is across sectors, the funding has to be across sectors. Stop siloing the funding, and making us compete rather than collaborate. I'll pause there.
And thank you very, very much for your patience. And thank you, Danny, whose chair I took over because I can't sit on the floor. A question to you all in the audience. Do you have any questions for Linda? Because while we've got her on the line.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Steven. And earlier, it was said that AI is used on us, not by us. And I'll just come right up to, we're short on time. I don't think that that's true. And I need all of us here, it's great to have the sound bites, but we need to be truthful. We're all using AI. It's being used by us also. And so my question to you is, how can we use AI in a way that is anti-racist, that is holistically healthy, that supports environmental justice, okay? And once you answer that question, tell us how. But to just say, in this forum with thinking people that are critical, to just say AI is being used on us, not by us, that's not true. So tell us how we can use it in a way that's anti-racist, that supports environmental justice, et cetera. Thank you.
Will do, sir, but I think that question is more towards Alli, because Alli was the one who gave that comment, and I want to ask y'all, do you have any questions particularly for Linda? Because I think we're stretching her patience for her. She's been trying for an hour and she's on the phone. So, instead of keeping her for another hour on the phone, any questions for Linda Saleh specifically relating to philanthropy and Big Green and building cross-sector alliances? Yes, there's a question from Peter Gilbert.
Yeah, my question is, are there talking points or strategies for pushing back on funders as grant funding is getting tighter for a lot of us in the nonprofit sector, and we are getting pushed, right, for what they claim is efficiency, how do we push back on that? Are there talking points? Are there strategies that have been developed to help those of us who do rely on foundation funding push back on that, on those pushes for quote efficiency?
Thank you, Peter. Linda?
I'm sorry, I did not hear. Could you repeat the question?
Yes, Peter was asking, how can we push back against the decisions by funders? Right? Am I paraphrasing you correctly? Okay. Go ahead, Linda. What talking points do you have, sound bites that we can give to get funders to give the money where it's needed rather than where it's detrimental? Thank you, Linda. Any other questions for Linda? Okay, thank you so much, Linda, for your patience, for bearing with us all, and for giving us your wisdom over the phone, and we wish you all the best, and we promise to continue to harass you. Okay, with that, just to let you know where we're going, I'm gonna open the floor for another 15 minutes of Q&A. Thank you to the gentleman who gave us that question. I love those questions because I think they're critical. So thank you for opening the space for those questions. Thank you very much for that. So we have 15 minutes for Q&A, and then I would like us to be breaking up into breakout groups so we can think organizing. So any other questions before? Oh, great. Okay, keep your hands up for our great volunteers. Could you see who's got their hands up to be giving questions? Okay, what do y'all want? You tell me. Do you want to take all the questions together and then do all the answers? Or do you want to go QA, QA, QA? Okay?
All right. Thank you so much for that question. I think it's a critical one, and I think we need to constantly be questioning not just these technologies, but ourselves. So I really appreciate it. I 100% ran out of time, and I didn't have time to talk through that statement. So I just want to clarify a little bit. I think the more accurate version of what's on that slide is overwhelmingly in AI use and deployment, it is being used on us and not by us. That certainly does not mean we are not using the tools, right? Overwhelmingly, the AI products that are being developed, deployed, and sold are to bosses to monitor workers and make people more efficient, to landlords to raise rents, to screen out tenants who might be risky, right? And we know what that means, right? And who that excludes. For health insurance companies to automate claims, resulting in denials, for benefit systems to automate claim adjudication, resulting in extremely high rates of unacceptable denials of coverage and care. And a number of other examples that I won't elaborate on. I think we also see AI use being forced upon us, right, as consumers in the daily digital products and in our lives without our consent. Trying to read my own damn handwriting. How to use AI in a way that is anti-racist and environmentally friendly. You might not like my answer, sir. I think at the scale that AI is being built out, which is not the inevitable trajectory, but at the scale it is being built out and the path that these big tech companies have put all of us on, it is not possible to use AI in an environmentally friendly way with the system as it is right now. The scale of the AI build out is putting dirty energy sources back online, like coal plants, driving us back to nuclear energy, expanding infrastructure at a rate that our communities cannot afford in any sense of the word. Again, it doesn't need to be this way, and there are a number of demands and strategies that we can push locally and at the state level to mitigate some of the environmental harms. But this is a systemic project. This is not about our individual use. It's like the plastics industry, right? The plastics industry convinced all the liberals in this country that if they individually recycled, we would solve this crisis, in taking the attention away from the industries producing the plastics. And I think there's a very similar example here. So I'm not saying don't use AI to make your life more efficient, but let's think about systemically what we are demanding. And in terms of data centers, we can push renewables, we can push for technologies that use less water, we can ban diesel generators. There are a number of things, and I'll put my email up to if folks want to connect about this, but it is systemic. And the last thing I'll say here is that how can we use AI in an anti-racist way? That is a big question, and all I'm going to say is that no technology is neutral. No algorithm is neutral. They are built with the biases, norms, and intentions of their creators. And if we are to use them, we have to know that error rates and inaccuracies and hallucinations are built into how these technologies work. They are not flukes, and we need ways to prevent and provide redress for them, and to assume that they will happen, because that is the core of how this functions.
Okay, let's take 2 questions at a time, like compromise.
Okay, I'm not quite sure this is a question or just a comment, but I really appreciate this conversation on AI and data centers, because I think it is the tip of the iceberg, if you want to put it, right? In the sense that I feel that the questions that you raised about the Hydra, the developer, the energy production, the use of water, which cannot be recycled back to us because it is so toxic. The chemicals that are used to cool the data centers cannot be recycled back. And the end user, which is us. I felt that that is the tip of the iceberg. What we don't discuss at this point is how technology, including AI and data centers, have been used in the current geopolitical war. Okay, the current geopolitical war, which includes surveillance, repression, like Palantir, for example, how it's being used to bomb Gaza, and the mission, the Canary mission, which is like a secret mission to point out the Palestinians to be killed. The military use, the use of satellite technology, the financial bubble that is creating in this country, which is caused by huge subsidies that the administration gives to this technological company. And then the last thing is the chip war, right? The tariff war. I'm just raising this, not because I have knowledge of this, but I'm saying is that we're really just looking at the tip of the iceberg. The bottom of the iceberg, which is this huge snarl, this behemoth, we're not even aware of what's going on. We hear here and there, the chips war, what's going on, the tariff war. I'm just raising this because I just realized how enormous this whole thing is affecting all our lives, and that for all of us right now, it's just a data center and we fight against that. But this huge thing that's going on, this huge geopolitical war that's going on, is going to affect us as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to start by thanking...
Wait, stand up.
All right. I want to start by thanking the panelists for the great presentations. My question is, I think we all recognize the power system that we're in, and getting rid of the building of one data center isn't going to do anything, because it's just, people with money are going to decide for another place and build it somewhere else. So what do you imagine collective action and actual strategies? And Alli, I think you started kind of talking about it a little bit, but what do you imagine strategies that we can organize towards would look like, that would move us towards something that actually moves the needle on this? Thank you.
I'll take one more question. Okay, I'm so glad I'm not the one choosing the questions.
Hi, my question is, it's a question and a comment, that it feels like the data center play and the proliferation of them is more of a real estate play than anything else. Because we've already seen, like China, the way China deploys AI with a much more massive population than the United States, they are somehow able to do it without the same level of pollution, without the same level of real estate being taken up by these data centers. So the question becomes, what is the underlying, and from what you've seen in investigating these data centers and investigating these companies, what have you seen and what does it feel like is the real thing being done here? Why is it so concentrated in the South? Why is it so concentrated in Black communities? There's something else structural happening that is leading to why it's concentrated the way it is here right now.
Thank you. Y'all feel ready to answer those? Okay.
I'll start with that last question. You said, why are they in these communities? It goes back to historical narrative. These are the exact locations where the mills were set up. The water, the water source there is unlimited almost, right? And so once they tap back into it, they got an unlimited source of energy. Duke Energy has been the precursor to allowing a lot of these companies to come in, because they are the ones to prove to the companies that there's enough energy coming from and water coming from those sources that they can set up, and it'll be a viable source for their new corporations or new Amazon data centers. So that's what we noticed in Richmond County, and all of the locations just seem to be correlated with Duke Energy. So wherever Duke goes, we know that something else is coming next. So we kind of stay in line with that, because we know that that's how it affects our communities. And our commissioners don't have the cojones, as I like to say, right, to ask any questions, just like the secret meeting that they had the night before the announcement of Amazon's $13.1 billion investment in Richmond County was not even publicized. It was a message that went out at midnight to certain groups of people. I was one of the people that got it from somebody that I know, and I showed up with Governor Steins, right? Josh Stein showed up just to make the announcement. And so they're not thinking in a sense of how do we save our community. It is about where's the money going. Follow the money and you will find out what the reason is. So, thank you.
Yeah, I would follow up on that by saying they've come for the global South too. Mexico, there's whole communities in Mexico that are reliant on bottled water. So we're just seeing it now play out here. So that's what U.S. empire does. They come for the global South. They come for indigenous Black and brown communities and resources all over the world. So this is that's just what they do. It's a white supremacist colonial mindset. Tech is just amplifying what they have already done from the beginning. Since the beginning of Silicon Valley, we paid for Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley was made for military purposes, right? It was for military to take on the Cold War. And so this goes back to what you were saying about China, right? This like race for who can control everything via technology is the same thing as the space race and the Cold War. So that's the roots of Silicon Valley. It has never changed. It is not about all of the benefits it can do for society. It has always been about advanced capitalism and control. And to Stephen's point, it never had to be this way, right? From the beginning, there were people thinking of ways that we could work less and use technology and have more time, except we live under capitalism, right? That's never, the goal is always profit, right? It's to squeeze every cent out of everybody. And these white, rich people, they expect black communities and indigenous communities won't fight back because they've taken everything already before, right? Or that they won't have the power. And so it is up to all of us. And that's why I do think AI is a huge opportunity, because it even affects rich people, right? It's like they can get denied claims too. And so it's a bridge that we can build if we start talking about, it's gonna the fact that we are here, I haven't been to the summit before, but I understand what it's about, is that we're trying to bring together people across issues to address these huge problems of climate change, massive flooding, and what they're putting upon us is that as we're like trying to address these things together, we have no choice except to make it exponentially worse beyond anything we could ever conceive. And so I do think people understand that, right? Like, we have to believe in ourselves, and that if you had a choice, right? If you go to anybody, poll basic Americans, do you want water to drink, air to breathe? Do you want your kids to be able to live? Well, then we have to move beyond just letting them take everything. Okay, one more thing about owning the infrastructure. We can make demands. We paid for it. We paid for all of the internet infrastructure. We're subsidizing these companies. It should be ours. It should be ours to control. So part of like taking back the land, take back our technology and make it for what we need.
These are
Good afternoon. You want, yeah, that's what I thought.
So I'll be brief. I'll try. I'm a New Yorker. It's impossible. These are great questions in terms of collective action. This, as someone who's organized against extractive and carceral technologies for a long time, I feel that we have a moment of collective people power that we have not been able to build in similar fights. Data centers and AI more broadly are not yet a partisan issue. People don't think, data centers, I'm a Democrat, so I need to think this way. I'm blue, I'm red, I'm whatever. Some of the most exciting and successful organizing work in communities across the country in terms of collective action is really bringing together people across issues, across backgrounds, across political affiliations. I know organizers in Indiana organizing the deepest red state voters around clean water who won't say the word climate, but they're fighting for their water resources, right? So I would say don't look away from unlikely allies. If you are in a place where data centers have not yet built out, now is the best time to organize for proactive policy change to either prevent them from coming in or prevent the worst harms. And maybe we can send out some data center policy resources or do another session as a follow-up. You can organize also regionally and around utility commission practices. The state level is really where ending tax breaks and subsidies for corporations come in, and I think that's a huge need in terms of collective action. And if data centers are already being built out, there's lots of ways to challenge them outside of traditional policy measures with litigation, good old-fashioned organizing and direct action, investigative journalism. To the other question around what's really going on here, I do want to highlight that while I agree with everything that has been said, and it's important to know that data centers are not only being built out in Black and brown communities. And what is, I think, different is that those whiter, wealthier, NIMBYer communities have more resources to organize against them, but that doesn't always mean that they're successful, right? Northern Virginia is a key example of this. Some of the most radical data center organizers I know are wealthy white folks in Virginia who got radicalized because the state tried to use eminent domain to take their property for data centers. So again, crossing the lines, understanding the histories of this, and knowing that the data center build out is happening because of proximity to industry, proximity to fossil fuel infrastructure, and that's where a lot of the focus goes on historically disenfranchised Black and brown communities, Cancer Alley, right, where there already is extremely extractive build out, and access to cheap energy, cheap land, and water resources. It is different in different places. It's not uniform.
Okay, I see there's still a yearning for more questions, so we're just going to go for 2 more. Okay, Go ahead.
Okay, I'm hearing all these questions, and my question kept changing. I thank you all for your presentation.
Could I trouble you to speak up or speak really into the mic? Thank you.
Okay, so my question kept changing because everyone was having similar questions to what I had. But speaking on what this gentleman said about AI being a help instead of a harm, I'm having this issue with my grandchildren right now because this generation has become so dependent on AI. They're given technology in school to use. They're using it. A lot of people during COVID lost their jobs. Now everyone's an entrepreneur. Everyone's on social media, and they're all using AI, and they think this is what's going to make them a part of that wealthier group. How do we strategize to get this information out? Because they don't understand that it's an environmental issue as well. That's pretty much my question right now.
Thank you. And Ms. Joyner? Okay, but could we give you a mic? Sorry.
Yes, I would like to chime in on the young man saying about our commissioners. They target our communities because they know, first of all, they're going to ask a lot of questions. We'll bring jobs to the community. That economic development, I hate that word, economic development, because that's what they use to pimp us. And that's all they're doing. Because we just the other night, Monday night in the commissioners meeting now, we have a community that's being, when I say solar panels, I'm talking 500 and 600 acres of solar panels. The families have been to the commissioners meetings twice a month. And they talk about the noise from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening, banging those stakes down in the ground. And then the debris from where they cut the trees down, they have a wood chipper, but the wood chipper is about 5 miles from where the debris is. So they set it on fire, and it burns. And then people can't come out and sit in their yards. Our economic developer, we met, Will Atwater, I had Will there, we met Tuesday before last, and we had the so-called PR person that said he's been there about 6 months, but he looked like me, and that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, and he already knows what time it is, right? So we go to the commissioners meeting on Monday night, and our economic developer is standing in there saying, "Oh, Sun Energy is gonna give us $100,000 for EMT center." Okay, that's our commissioners' business to have what we need in the county as emergency management. So why you got these people that's gonna come in here? In other words, when you burn this smoke and run us crazy, then we can just call the EMT and they can come and get us and take us to the hospital. So they know what they're doing, and you can't tell our people, and like I said, I'm gonna say it because I'm black, and I'm gonna stand up so everybody can see me because I'm tired. But this is what they do, and like he said, they don't listen, they don't ask questions. Instead of having stipulations to say, when you come in our community, this is what's gotta happen. This is what you have to do. But they take that little bit of money and act like they got a whole lot, and there's always profit over people. And that's the bottom line, profit over people. So we need to stand up, start going to your meetings and speaking out, because that's the only way that you're gonna make a change.
Thank you.
That's right, take a whole lot of people with you, and we beg people to come to the meeting. Well, I got something to do, but now if I was having a party and had some looking music, I have everybody in the world there. I'm gonna tell it like it is. I'm gonna tell it like it is. Because that's what it is. But see, if we don't wake up and smell the coffee and stop drinking the Kool-Aid, it's going to be like it's going to be.
Thank you. Profit over people, like we say in Arabic, you just put your finger on the wound. Profit over people, that's the heart of capitalism right there. I just briefly want to respond to your question. If we look at what ChatGPT does, according to lots of studies, ChatGPT reduces your ability to think critically. ChatGPT reduces your ability to write critically, because those two go together, thinking and writing critically. So if our youth are using ChatGPT, that means they are being dumbed down. not only are they being dumbed down, there's new studies coming out that we know that there's a marriage between big tech and between Zionists, a marriage between big tech and Israelis. And we know that the Israeli government right now is influencing ChatGPT. So when you ask ChatGPT a question, you're not asking an encyclopedia. You're not asking a scientific textbook. You're asking a propaganda machine that pretends to be neutral, and our students believe it. So let's just be really, really careful and look at who is owning these software systems and what profits them and what kind of information they want to give us. So that's really number one, that we really, really have to beware of ChatGPT. If it were up to me, I'd return the Dewey Decimal System, and I think that's where we need to be going back. Okay, so yes. Oh no. So once we understand that, and then that becomes how do we liberate our schools from all of these systems? Remembering, I gotta stress this point. The reason behind AI is not simply to dumb down our minds, but to steal our labor. That means they want to take away our jobs and replace us with artificial stupidity, not intelligence. So I want to leave you all with some 15 minutes to go through these questions. And the reason we've given you these questions in those sheets, okay, you'll see that you have a sheet, an individual sheet on each one of your tables that's entitled Hydra, Hidden Cost of Data Centers. There's 3 questions. We would be really appreciative if you can just take a few minutes and individually reflect on these questions. Where do you see data centers or AI expansion touching your work? What connections can you draw between your community's fights and the struggles that you've just heard about? Y'all with me? Okay, stay with me for a sec. Stay with me for a sec, okay? The second question is, how many people here are right now fighting a data center? We've got 2 hands up. How many people here are thinking about joining the fight for a data center? Now you're thinking about it, like now. Wait, let me ask that again. How many people now are thinking about supporting a fight against data centers? Perfect, okay. So then think about what tools or methods that you need to be a bigger supporter for the fight against data centers, okay? And the third question is, what is one concrete way that we could support each other across these different issue areas? What is one concrete way? Because we're talking about many different issues, from water to noise to air quality to energy rates to surveillance to ICE. There is a direct relationship between the surveillance and AI and ICE. Okay? There are all these relationships. What's one specific way that you think that you could do this? So if you could spend a few minutes individually, silently going through that, and then spend another 5 to 10 minutes on your table talking about that together, we would be so grateful. And then we're going to come back in 15 minutes. Sounds good? And everybody has that sheet, okay? Keep in mind, I would love for your writing to be really legible because you're going to give these sheets back to us. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, I know. And then, in case your writing is not legible, on the back sheet, all I need is an X from you on the trainings. Okay, y'all with me? Okay, thank you.